Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got our best bets for college basketball here on December 17th. And my goodness, we've got a good slate today. We've got some of the best teams in the country, a lot of SEC schools, taking the court today. But we've got picks for all day long here on Tuesday, December 17th. And folks, before we get into the best bets, if you have not yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. We're going to be doing these videos all the way until March Madness this year. So make sure to stay tuned to the channel by hitting that subscribe button down below and leaving likes daily on these videos. We also have our in-season tournament finals predictions going out in about an hour between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I am doing some player props for the first time on that video as well, so if you want to go check that video out, it will be out on the channel in about an hour, as well as our college football bowl games predictions are going out later today as well. We will have predictions for the first round of the college football playoff. On top of that, we will have every single prediction for every one of the bowl games coming up this week as well. Of course, the schedule goes as follows, of course, on Christmas Eve, on the 2nd, on the 7th. All those videos will be out here on the channel. Okay, on to our first best bet of the video, and we are starting, obviously, when we get a spot early in the day. We are going to pick that game. We are going to the 12:30 game between the Drexel Dragons and the Howard Bison. It's a 12:30 spot. It's the earliest game. You know, what else are you going to do at 12:30 tomorrow? Or today, excuse me. What else are you going to do? You're going to sit there on ESPN Plus and watch Drexel and Howard, because we have a spot in this game that we like. We like Howard in the money line straight up. You can take the plus 2.5, that's fine. I'm taking plus 120 for the Howard Bison. The game is in Washington, D.C. It is a home game for Howard. They get Drexel, who, you know, Drexel's not bad. They're 7-4 this season, obviously, again, coming in from Philadelphia to play this game. But when you look at the teams Drexel's beat this season, there is nobody all that impressive. They have beat NIAAs like Georgian Court. Maybe that's Gregorian. I don't know. Georgian Court. They won the game 95-43. They've beaten Colgate up the Patriot League. They beat Fairfield, Fordham, Chicago State, UPenn. Not a bad win. Not a crazy one, though, over the Quakers. And their last victory, they went on the road to beat UAlbany. The only time we faded Drexel this season, the only time we picked a Drexel game was their last loss when the Bryant Bears were able to beat them by 5 points, and that game was at home for Drexel. We took Bryant as road dogs, and we cashed in that game, right? Drexel's lost to Temple before the season. They've lost to LaSalle. They are a 7-4 team, but I think their record, again, is better than what their team actually is. They are led by Kobe McGee, who averages 16 points a game for this Drexel squad. You got Yame Butler, who's averaging 13.5, and Cole Hargrove as well, who averages 11.5 points. But I do like the home team here in Howard. Now, again, Howard is not the best. They are a 5-6 team this season, but really, again, you look at their record. I know they have some bad losses. They lost at UMBC. They've lost to BU this year. They lost to Mount St. Mary's. They lost to Cincinnati, but they are coming off a victory against UNC Wilmington. They were able to beat that UNC Wilmington squad 88-83. And I get it, the Seahawks aren't the best, but at the same time, honestly, for being in the CAA, UNC Wilmington's not that horrible. I mean, this is a team that, you know, this season has beat Marshall, has beat East Carolina, has beat App State, has beat Sam Houston. Honestly, that's a pretty good win for Howard, right? Beating UNC Wilmington, winning the game 88-83. They've got a win on the road at FIU this year. They were able to go to Miami and beat that Florida International team. They went to overtime and beat Tennessee State as well. Their losses, again, Kansas, Missouri, UMBC, Mount St. Mary's, and Cincinnati. I mean, it could be worse, honestly, for the Howard Bison. Personally, I was surprised we are getting Howard at plus money for this game. The game is in DC. It's a home game for Howard, and they've been playing decent basketball. I get it again. Drexel has won 2 in a row as well, but Howard is coming off a huge victory over UNC Wilmington, and really feels like every game Howard plays, they have someone who goes off for 25 plus, whether it be Marcus Dockery, who is their leading scorer with 17 points a game, or Blake Harper, who's averaging 16.5. I mean, one of those two guys usually go off in one of their games. It's just a matter of who it is. But we're picking Howard straight up. So again, we just need one of these guys to perform really well and give us 25 points. And we should be fine here with the Bison. Again, Dockery and Harper are their 1 and 2, and they've got Anwar Gill as well, who's averaging 10 points a game. But again, Harper's, you know, I believe Harper's their 3. I think Harper plays 3 for the squad. I believe he does. Because he plays 2 or 3. Harper averages 7 rebounds a game. Dockery, again, they're 1, 17 points a game. I really don't mind the Howard Bison at all. I think they are able to win this game at home. I'm not sold on Drexel, and for Howard, again, they've been playing decent basketball. Again, the win over UNC Wilmington's great. Dockery, again, is their point guard, and he is going to lead this team, I think. Drexel, again, not a bad team, but I think when you match these teams up, I think Howard is the better squad, and especially, again, we do like the Bison because the game is in Washington, D.C. Again, got to make a pick for the 12:30 game. Of course, what else are you going to watch during this time? This is the only sporting event on, so we got to make a bet. And no, I'm not forcing the play here. I really just do like Howard. I think, again, I was very surprised when I saw the line. I kind of assumed, honestly, when I saw the schedule, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is a neutral site game. That's maybe why Drexel's getting points. No, the game's in D.C. and Howard's an underdog. Again, I don't know what type of home court advantage Howard's going to have in the Burr Gymnasium in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many people can fit in here. Doesn't look like that big of an arena, but still, I like the home court advantage here for Howard, and I do think they're very comparable to Drexel, and with the game being in DC, I like Howard even more. Give me the Bison. We get them at plus money, and we're going to take it all day long. Give me Howard to win at home. Next up, we go on to the bigger games today, and this might be the biggest game of the day. In Charlotte, North Carolina, you've got the Florida Gators taking on the North Carolina Tar Heels. No, not a home game for UNC, but relatively it is. I mean, I've only been to the state of North Carolina once, and I'm trying to remember. I've been to Raleigh. That's the only spot in North Carolina I've been to other than the Charlotte airport. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe Chapel Hill is kind of right there. Let's do a geography lesson, guys. Here we go. We're going to do it. This is the ESPN schedule, but let's look up a map of North Carolina because we're going to learn something today using sports. All right, so Charlotte is right here. Obviously, there is Charlotte. Raleigh is the only part of the state I have been to. When I actually flew out of Raleigh, I had to fly from Raleigh to Charlotte to make my connector to get to St. Louis, but regardless. Greensboro's here. Where is Chapel Hill? Chapel Hill's literally right here. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. NC State's here, Duke's here, North Carolina's here, and then I remember Wake Forest was somewhere around here as well. The only time I've ever been to North Carolina is for a Travis Scott concert, and I swear there were dudes from North Carolina State there, there's dudes from North Carolina, there's dudes from Duke, and there's dudes from Wake Forest. I mean, like, all the schools are right there, and they all converge for the Travis Scott concert. So yeah, this is not that far of a trip for UNC to get to Charlotte. I mean, it's a 30-minute, 25-minute plane ride, but I think it's like a 2-hour drive. So this is a relative home game for the Tar Heels in this one, and we do like them at plus money here. Florida's undefeated. I get that. They're 10-0. We talked about this the other day, like who's the best team in college basketball? It's Tennessee. But, where is Florida? Because Florida's a squad, of course, who is undefeated as well. We just saw Tennessee go on the road. Obviously, that buzzer beater victory that they got over Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. How good is Florida really, though? Because who have they beat this season? I mean, they beat Florida State on the road. They beat Virginia, who has been very iffy this season. They beat Wichita, who's not bad. And they beat ASU. I mean, not bad victories, but really, again, they have not beat a ranked team yet this season, and they've only been on the road once where they had to go to Tallahassee. For North Carolina, I understand they're a 6-4 team, but listen to the teams that they've lost to. Kansas at the beginning of the season. They lost in Maui to both Auburn and Michigan State. It's going to happen. And they lost to Alabama. They lost by 3 points to Michigan State, Bama by 15, Auburn by 13, 3 to Kansas. They've beat Dayton this season. They beat Georgia Tech in their only ACC game up until this point. They've got another big game later this week against UCLA. I believe UCLA goes to Chapel Hill for that game. I think they do. No, it's a neutral site. Never mind. But still, where is that game being played? That's in... Oh, it's an MSG. Nice. Regardless, I like North Carolina here. Again, it's a relative home game for them. There's going to be much more UNC fans in Charlotte than there are going to be people from Gainesville, Florida. And I just think North Carolina is able to hang in this basketball game. Personally, I like the plus 4.5 a lot more. So again, I think I'm only going to play the plus 4.5. I might sprinkle some of the money line, but I think 4.5 is a good bet in this one because I just don't think Florida is able to get away by that many points. Florida has not played a team like North Carolina yet. Oh, they've played ACC schools. They played Virginia and Wake Forest. It's not on the same level, obviously, of North Carolina. We've seen North Carolina play competitive against Kansas this season. RJ Davis, Seth Trimble. I mean, again, these guys are able to hang in basketball games like this. So that's why I think the plus 4.5 is a really good value. I think they can definitely win the game, but I think plus 4.5, I don't think the Gators are able to get away from them by that many points. I really don't think so. And RJ Davis hasn't had a big game in a while. I mean, his last really, game where he went off was the Dayton game where he scored 30 points. He's been, just averaging his 15 points a night. I feel like RJ Davis is going to have a big night tonight, honestly, against Florida, right? In the LaSalle game, it was Cade Tyson with 23. They lost to Bama. It was Ian Jackson who scored 23 points. Again, I feel like RJ Davis is going to finally step up and rise to the occasion tonight against this Florida Gators squad. Don't get me wrong, again, I think Florida's great. Walter Clayton's been phenomenal for this team. He leads their team in points pretty much every single night. Clayton's averaging 19 points a night. Elijah Martin's been very good for Florida as well. But I just think North Carolina is able to catch them here. Again, I feel like Florida eventually is going to screw up and lose just because, again, they haven't played an elite team yet. And I get it. The SEC is really good, and you'll see in the next game here, I'm going to kind of flip this logic with the SEC, but it's a spot I really like, trust me. I think the ACC gets the SEC here. Give me the North Carolina Tar Heels to win in Charlotte. I think RJ Davis is a big night, and give me the Tar Heels to win and cover the 4.5 points. Again, we really like the plus 4.5. If you want to take the money line, take it. But the real best bet here is plus 4.5 for the North Carolina Tar Heels. I just don't think this game is going to get that out of hand. I think North Carolina will be able to remain in the basketball game. And here's the other SEC versus ACC matchup. We have the Clemson Tigers going on the road to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. So we go from, of course, North Carolina down to South Carolina, a battle between the two best schools in the state of South Carolina in basketball, obviously. The Clemson Tigers taking on the South Carolina Gamecocks. We're taking the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks to beat the number 25th ranked team in Clemson. The game is going to be in Columbia. I like South Carolina to take it then. Home court advantage is a big deal. I'm not going to just straight up say, oh, the SEC is better than the ACC. Right now, it seems like it is, obviously. But, the SEC's been playing really well to start the season. But Clemson has done fairly well as well. Obviously, I'm not, again, going to make that point, oh, the SEC is much better than the ACC because we literally just took North Carolina to beat, an undefeated Florida squad. But I think, again, I like South Carolina at home. Clemson's coming off a loss to Memphis where they lost by 5 points. Again, don't forget, Memphis just lost. The Clemson game was after the Arkansas State loss for Memphis. So, yeah, Memphis goes from losing to the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Then they beat Clemson, and Clemson again is now 9-2 this season. They have good wins. Again, they beat Penn State, who's just an odd team. Some nights Ace Baldwin, goes off and Penn State looks great, and then other nights when we bet on Ace Baldwin, he scores 4 points, goes 1 for 12 from the field, and Penn State can't get anything going. Clemson's beat San Francisco. I don't care how many times USF will burn us, like Loyola Chicago, way to go, guys, but I refuse to admit that San Francisco is good. I think they get killed when West Coast Conference play starts. I think Santa Clara is better than them. I think Gonzaga is obviously better. Wazoo, St. Mary's, Oregon State, all those schools are better than San Francisco. They're not in the top 5 in the West Coast Conference. Trust me, they will get burned once West Coast Conference play starts. So that win doesn't really impress me too much for Clemson. They lost to Boise earlier in the year on the road in Boise. Again, not a horrible loss, but they lost the game by 13 points. They've beaten Kentucky, which is obviously their biggest win to date. Right, we picked Kentucky in that game, and I'm not afraid to admit I was wrong in that one. But it's a whole different game. Again, Clemson got that game at home. Now they got to go on the road to Columbia against the South Carolina team, which I get it. They have been a little bit underwhelming this season, but they've looked much better since the Xavier loss, right? They lose by 9 points to Xavier. They lost at Assembly Hall earlier this year to the Indiana Hoosiers, a game that we did pick South Carolina, and I get it again. Indiana has not been playing great basketball this season. Again, if you tune in later today for our college football picks, I am going to give a 15-minute spiel about Curt Cignetti, Curtis Rourke, and Indiana football, because they're going to go on the road, and they are going to beat Notre Dame in South Bend. All right, but Indiana basketball, I could care less. Mike Woodson, get him out of here. Like, it's just, I don't buy Indiana basketball at all. I just don't. Football, I'm all on board. But Indiana basketball, no, they're still not very good. So I understand it's a bad loss for South Carolina. I understand earlier in the season they lost to North Florida. I get it. But since that Xavier loss, they have looked so much better. Wins over VTech. A win on the road at Boston College. They are able to beat East Carolina. SC Upstate, don't care. But still, they have looked much better since that Xavier loss. They have looked like a different team, and more guys just have gotten going. I mean, again, it's Colin Murray-Boyles. It is Jamari Thomas. This team has looked better recently. They really have held the SC Upstate game. It was It was Nick Pringle who led their team in scoring with, I think, 19 points. Again, the game changes when you're at home, especially in a big-time game like this. It is a different environment. Clemson, again, they have beat Kentucky this season. But when you have to go on the road, it is a whole nother animal. And again, we've seen it time in and time out this season. Sure, Clemson was able to go on the road and beat Miami. Miami's horrible. I don't care. Their only other road game this season, they lost in Boise to Boise State. It's the only road game they've played. And Chase Hunter had a great night. He scored 30 points, but everyone else could not rise to the occasion. And I think, again, that's kind of what we get here. I think we get Chase Hunter putting up a bunch of points. I think Ian Shefflin, well, again, he usually has big nights in the glass, along with Victor Larkin. But I really think, again, the way I see this game going, Chase Hunter has a big night. No one else rises to the occasion. South Carolina is able to get him. We're taking the Gamecocks to win this one. We're getting him at plus money here. Plus 130 for the Gamecocks. Plus 2.5. Give me South Carolina at home to beat the Clemson Tigers. Yes, we're taking a lot of underdogs today. We are not done just yet with the dogs. But first, let's take a favorite. We're going to Bowling Green, Kentucky for the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at home against Seattle University. I think it's just a smash spot for WKU. I don't think 7.5 points is enough. Western Kentucky's playing their best basketball right now. They are on a 4-game winning streak. Wins over Marshall, win on the road at Evansville, who is horrible, but still a win over Tennessee State and a win over Murray State. They get a Seattle University team that I think is horrible. And on top of that, Seattle University has to go all the way from the Pacific Northwest, the very tip of the country on the West Coast, all the way down to the Midwest into Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's a far trip just for one game. They go back home for their next game on, Friday? I really don't understand. They're just making a quick random trip out to the Midwest to take on WKU. Again, it doesn't really make sense to me, but they are. It just feels like a really weird spot for Seattle. I don't think this team's all that great. We faded them earlier in the season when we said the Liberty Flames were going to beat them, and that's exactly what happened. We took Liberty on the road to go all the way up to the Pacific Northwest and win. But this is a Seattle University team that has a 4-6 record. Their wins are UCSD, don't care, Northwest State, what is that? Pacific in Oregon, that's an NIAA, and then Portland State. Their only D1 wins this season are Portland State, who's horrible, and UCSD, who, again, every school in San Diego, if you're not San Diego State, is not credible in basketball. Yes, that was just a shot at USD, but it is what it is, right? I don't get it. 7.5 points. I really think Western Kentucky smashes this team. I think, again, we see something kind of like what we saw in the Tennessee State game. Am I saying Seattle University is as bad as Tennessee State? No, but WKU is able to win that game by 24 points. I think they win this game easily by double digits. I really think so. WKU struggled early in the season, but their losses are Wichita State, Grand Canyon, who did let us down yesterday, but still, Wichita State, Grand Canyon on the road, and then at Kentucky. Other than that, they've won every single game they've played this year. I don't think the Hilltoppers are all that bad. Personally, I think they're the second best team in the CUSA. I think when it's all said and done, La Tech's not bad. But I know, we watched La Tech yesterday. But still, Liberty's, I think, number 1, then La Tech, Western Kentucky's probably 3, right? I honestly, when we get Western Kentucky, La Tech, I don't really mind the Hilltoppers in that spot, I'll be honest with you. Again, we'll get there eventually in CUSA play. Don McHenry's been good this season for WKU, averaging 16.5 points. He's by far their best guy, their best scorer. And I think the Hilltoppers absolutely dominate the Seattle University Redhawks team. Again, it's a far trip for Seattle, going all the way down to Bowling Green, Kentucky. They don't really have that many great scorers. I mean, it's Matthew Alexander Moncrief is their leading scorer with 14 points per game. But this is a Seattle team that really struggles to score. The times we've seen them on the road this season, they have not looked great. They lost at Eastern Washington by 7 points. They lost to Cal Poly by 4. Again, I think WKU's way better than both those schools. UTEP beat them by 16 points on the road. They lost to Duke, obviously, on the road, and they were able to go to UCSD and win on the road. Again, going to the University of California, San Diego is not a tough road environment to play in. I really don't care they won that road game. Going to Bowling Green, Kentucky is a whole other thing, though. Again, you got to go cross-country. And I think WKU is just by far the better team. Minus 7.5. It might be our only, favorite spot we have today in terms of picking a team that's favored in a basketball game. But we are going with the Hilltoppers to win at home and cover the 7.5 points against the Seattle University Redhawks. Let's go into our final best bet of the video. And yes, we're taking another underdog. Give me Drake to beat Kansas State. Yeah, I know. I know that might be, kind of a hot take considering, K-State is getting this game essentially at home in Kansas City. I understand that. I actually think Drake's the better team. I think they are. They're undefeated, and I know the last time we took an undefeated team was when we took Loyola Chicago the other night. Didn't go great for us. Again, yeah, it might be a home game for K-State, kind of. They go from, God, where is Kansas State? It's, I'm tripping. I don't even know what city it is in Kansas. But I mean, the state of Kansas is not that massive. I mean, it's right there, essentially. They're playing at Kansas City. It's in Manhattan, Kansas. I have never been in the state of Kansas. The closest I've been to Kansas is Missouri, so I don't know my geography of the state of Kansas. I assume, okay, it's literally right there from what I'm seeing. Okay. Regardless, Drake's in Iowa. It's right there. They're playing in a neutral site, I believe, because, K-State doesn't always play their games here, right? I don't think so. I could be tripping, but I don't believe K-State always plays the T-Mobile Center. Oh, wait, no. No, they definitely don't play the T-Mobile Center. Yeah, they play in Manhattan. I mean, I don't mind Drake in this spot. They're 9-0, and guys, Kansas State has lost at home against, or no, it was a tournament game, so they lost to Liberty. They lost at home to LSU by 11 points. They barely got by Cleveland State, who is absolutely atrocious at basketball. And they lost to St. John's on the road. Guys, Kansas State's best win this season is George Washington, and it's not even close. And don't get me wrong, I like George Washington. I like the Revolutionaries. I'm hoping they can make a run in the A-10 this season. We will see. They've played some really close games, though, right? They lost to American. They played ODU tough. They played Army tough. I don't know how good the Revolutionaries are this season. I think Rhode Island or maybe St. Bonnie's, the St. Bonnie's are the best team in the A-10. Of course, Dayton's involved too. But regardless, K-State, again, their best victory is the Revolutionaries of George Washington this season. They've lost to St. John's, they lost to Liberty, they lost to LSU, and Drake's a squad that is undefeated so far this season. And I get it, they haven't played the best teams, but we were able to see them around Thanksgiving play their tournament. They were able to beat Miami, which at the time was a huge upset. They beat Florida Atlantic. They ended up beating a red hot, regardless. They were a dominant Vandy team in that tournament, and they were able to beat the Commodores of Vanderbilt by 11 points. Since then, they just haven't really played anybody, but they've won. They beat Georgia Southern, they beat Valpo, and they beat St. Ambrose. I don't know what the hell St. Ambrose is, but they've been able to win. Again, this Drake team is undefeated, and again, normally I'd say, unproven, but look what they were able to do. Again, they've beaten every team on their schedule, and they looked impressive. They blew out every single team they played in that tournament. Again, they beat Miami by 11, they beat FAU by 12, they beat Vandy by 11 points. They did not have competitive games in that tournament. I think, again, they're able to beat Kansas State. We get Drake at plus money, and yes, I'm taking 4 underdogs in this video. We are getting a lot of plus money action here in this video. But I really do think Drake's able to beat this Kansas State team who has struggled this year. They've struggled against teams that they are supposed to be better than. They have. Guys, losing to Liberty, I love the Flames, but they lost to Liberty by 2 points. Again, they beat Cleveland State by 10 points. Like, that's what Minnesota's doing to teams like that. And Minnesota's horrible. Cleveland State is just bad, and they, didn't run right over them. And they're coming off a huge loss to St. John's. They haven't played in 10 days. And now you got to play Drake in a neutral site game. I know, again, it's essentially just a home game for K-State, but still, I like the Drake Bulldogs. I like the undefeated team. Again, we have seen them play these good, supposedly good squads going into the games, obviously. I mean, no, the Vandy one, I will still say that Vandy wins a good victory. Vandy, that's only lost this season, right? Vanderbilt since then has beat teams like Virginia Tech and TCU. The only loss they have this season is the Drake Bulldogs. When I was thinking the games aren't that great, it's like Miami, but still, they beat an ACC school. They beat Miami. They were able to beat FAU as well, who's been good in years past. I don't think this is a bad spot for Drake at all. We get them at plus money. I am not sold on Kansas State. I don't care the game's in Kansas City. Give me the Drake Bulldogs. They're just the better team. You play this game on Mars. You play it at Drake. You play it in Kansas. You play it at Kansas City. I don't care where you play. You play it on Mars. We're taking the Drake Bulldogs. Give me Drake to win the basketball game. You can take the plus 1.5, but at that point, just take the money line. We are taking Drake to go on the road to the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri, and we're taking Drake to take care of business. Or is it in Kansas City, Kansas? I don't know, actually. It might be. It doesn't matter. They're literally just overlapped, I think, right? Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, different state for Kansas. Who cares for K-State? Give me the Bulldogs of Drake to go on the road and pick up the victory. If you want a bonus pick for today, I was really looking at Western Illinois to win at home against Tennessee Tech, but then I thought to myself, you know, what's more entertaining, talking about Drake and Kansas State or West Illinois and Tennessee Tech? So if you want a bonus, I was considering taking West Illinois -1.5. And then for the late games, there's just really nothing, honestly. I've done zero deep research into this game, but I just look at Merrimack and Stanford and say Stanford sucks. Give me Merrimack +15.5. I don't really. Merrimack's honestly on a 4-game winning streak. Stanford sucks beyond Maxime Renaud. So if you want to pick there, take Merrimack +15.5. But yes, I was heavily considering adding West Illinois and Tennessee Tech to this video, but I like these games more. So folks, that'll do it for our 5 best bets for college basketball here on December 17th. If you have not yet though, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.